just blurting stuff out and dumping shit on other people, and well, let them deal with it. Um, Walking up to people saying, "Yeah, you're fat and you're stupid." I'm just being radically honest. That's consider that brutal honesty or whatever. It's because there's not, where's the vulnerability in that?
Welcome to the werise podcast. This show aims to inspire, educate, and connect pioneers who want to create a more conscious and regenerative world. Together, we'll explore this question: how can we shift our focus from personal growth, I rise, to unleashing our collective genius and creating more we rise moments? Every month, we'll be diving into all of the mindset, relationship, and energetic work that you need in order to leave behind all of the old paradigms that you may have been taught about how the world should be run, and step into your highest potential. I'm your host, Irina Naitani, and I'm here to help you create more we rise energy and momentum. Let's get started right away. Welcome, Pete. Hi, I'm so happy to have you here today. You are one of the, I think, rather few certified radical honesty trainers in Europe, right?
Yes.
And you're based in the beautiful city of Amsterdam,
Yes.
right? And I heard that you've got a passion for cycling and bicycles. That
Yeah,
right too?
that's what brought me to the city. I'm
Okay.
originally from San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and I came here 20 years ago to study the cycling of Amsterdam, and was supposed to just be here for 4 months, and 20 years later, here I am still.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So, Pete, today we're going to talk about your work with radical honesty and how that can be a means to kind of fuel the what I call the I rise journey of individuals on their personal development and growth. And at the same time, how radical honesty might be a powerful tool to also update our relationships and to support our we rise journey. Yeah. Amazing. Shall we dive into it right away?
Yes,
yeah.
Please.
Okay, let's do it. So a couple of days ago, I stumbled upon a tagline for one of your upcoming retreats. I think you'll host it together with your wife, Tulia, who's also a radical honesty teacher or trainer. And the tagline really made me smile big time. And it was something like, to completely ruin the life you know. Okay.
Okay.
So, and maybe to share a little bit about your journey with radical honesty, which parts of your life were ruined by embracing radical honesty when you first started out?
Well, I first learned about radical honesty about 10 years ago when I met Julia, my now wife. She had been to a radical honesty retreat in Greece in 2012, I think. And I was quite curious about it. So the first night we met, and she told me about this thing, and I was quite curious about what this would mean to go to a retreat where everybody says kind of those things that they don't normally say. Took me about another year till I finally went. She had then went to another radical honesty retreat, an 8-day intensive, and I saw her before she went, and I saw her when she came home a week and a half later, and I was quite amazed. She seemed so much more looser, so much more lighter, so much more open, and I wasn't quite sure what exactly happened there in the retreat, and I just knew that I wanted some of that for myself. And yet, when I did go to my first workshop, I was quite nervous. I'm pretty confident saying the quietest person in the room. That everyone else was opening up and sharing, and I was still quite closed. And even though many people through the years have told me that I'm quite an open and honest person, I realized I was being very selective about what I shared about myself. And I knew that there were these parts of me also that I wasn't sharing, including many joyous and happy parts. 2 days after that first workshop, an old friend who I hadn't seen in 20 years was passing through Amsterdam, and I spent a few hours with him sharing all this appreciation for him that I'd never shared before because I was too embarrassed, too ashamed. I didn't really know how to share appreciation. And yeah, it kind of ruined my life in that way. It was like that person you knew before who was kind of shy and embarrassed to say these kinds of things. That person no longer exists because now here I am praising my friend for all his musical talents that I'd never allowed myself to do before. But I also realized after attending that first workshop that I had a lot of recurring thoughts about things from the past, not just the appreciation, but also anger, sadness, a lot of conversations that I was having in my head with people that if I could do it over again, if I could go back to that moment, I would now say these things. And when I learned about radical honesty, this concept of having these honest conversations or completion talks, completing the unfinished emotional business, I'm going back to the people and saying the things I didn't say that first time. So I did that with that friend. I did that with 𝗿𝗏 even, things I'd been withholding from 𝗿𝗏, with my ex-wife, with my brothers and sisters, with my parents, with many of my friends, even with my son. A couple things that I've been withholding from my son, who was then about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. Was quite powerful for me and quite liberating and not at all easy. Each conversation, of course, I had a worst case scenario of how horrible this would be and showing myself in a new way to people I'd known for a long time. And that's, our theory is that a major reason why we don't have these conversations is because we get stuck with those worst case scenarios. And I found over and over again that many of those worst case scenarios didn't come to pass. And me sharing myself openly and honestly led to a lot of unexpected things, like my friends, my family, 𝗿𝗏, all sharing things with me that they hadn't shared before. That me taking this first step was seen as an invitation by others to share themselves. So in that way, I ruined my life by ruining that past version of myself that was trying very hard to manage how people viewed me. Now I shared so many more things about myself and then allowed them to take me or leave me instead of trying to get them to only think positively or like me by me being selectively sharing the positive things about me.
Wow, this is really like touching and really, really, really powerful, right? Like really profound thing when you say like, I mean, at the end of the day, it really boils down to that, that one moment we have also with other people to connect. So I think that really touched me most, this thinking about when I could do it again, if I had only the chance to, to connect, more honestly, deeper, or in a different way. So maybe the journey would unfold in a different way because I had the courage to show up fully, and not only maybe having the worst case scenario on top of my mind, but also just what is it? What does it take to have the courage, to find the courage to do it anyways? What does it need to do this very first step and share?
Yeah. What's curious, we think of it as being courageous to share, and yet in one way, all we're doing is just being ourselves, just sharing who we actually are. And it's crazy that it takes courage for us to just be who we are. But yeah, that first step can just be sharing something small, that's a little daring for one person to share to another person. And having that experience, having a new, different experience, and connecting in a new, different way. And then, yeah, going a little bit deeper, sharing something else that's maybe uncomfortable sharing, trying that out with other people, seeing how that is surviving. Yeah, it can be quite challenging, and of course, it's not easy. It's things probably will get worse before they get better when you start to reveal yourself. People may be angry, may be sad, may think less of you, may have judgments. And our theory with this work is that you kind of have to go through that shit to get to the better place. You can't go around it. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You have to go through it, have that experience, and have that sort of interpersonal experience, have it with another person to get to that better place with them. And there's no guarantee that's going to get to a better place. So that's, yeah, I guess that's where the courage really comes in. Going into this, not knowing how it's going to end up. That's fucking scary.
It is. It is. It is totally. And I mean, how do you find out within yourself, like, this is now a moment, I need to speak up. I need to, something's going on. Maybe for our listeners to really, I mean, at the end of the day, it starts with ourselves. So what is this kind of shift maybe in awareness inside of yourself that makes you, gives you this kind of trigger point to, okay, something's off here, or I feel, what are examples for those situations when you feel like, oh, now I really need to share and disclose myself?
Well, one thing for me was doing this work of going back to people in my life and sharing with them, was noticing those things that I didn't share, how powerful that was for me to share with them. And then I was able to spend less time thinking about the past. Unfortunately, I spent decades reliving conversations from the past. And once I had these actual conversations face to face with these people, I was able to let go of a lot of those conversations, and I was able to far more live in the present, which sounds kind of cheesy or basic, and yet for me, it was very much true. I was thinking about the past far less, and when I was with that person, whoever it was, I could relate to them now in the moment, and that's sort of walking on through a minefield of, okay, there's these topics that I don't want to talk about. Try to steer them away from those topics. Now I didn't have that. So you asked for clues, and one thing for me was someone saying something or something happening, paying attention to my body. So we judge that our bodies are provide a wealth of information. All this stuff is coming up from our body to our brain, and yet our mind has so conditioned ourselves that our mind is what's important. Just pay attention to the mind, and yet the body is providing all this other information. And for me, noticing tightness in my belly, sweatiness, my heart racing, those are all important clues that something's going on for me, and that'd probably be best for me to speak up in that moment, what I can relate to, relate those physical sensations to. And it takes practice. The first time I expressed my anger to Tulia about some things, it took me almost a year after I'd first learned this practice. She had taken me out to dinner. She'd asked me to go to, she asked me where I wanted to go. And I said, any place has lots of vegetarian options, like a Thai place or a Japanese place or a Mexican place or something. And she took me to a Dutch place that had just one vegetarian dish. And I thought, okay, it's my birthday. She's giving me a gift. I can't be angry about this. So I just smiled and said, oh, thank you. And ordered the one dish for vegetarians available. And then she gave me some gifts. She gave me some books. She gave me a book by Nelson Mandela, I recall, and one by the Dalai Lama. And again, I received them and nodded my head and smiled and said, thank you, thank you. But really, I was thinking, I'm not going to read these books. I already have so many books at home I want to read. And she was excited about the books. And I thought, I was thinking, well, you should read them, not me. But again, I had this idea, I can't express anger at somebody giving me a gift. And then, we'd only been together for about 3 months, and I broke up with her the next day, without really realizing what was going on. But I didn't feel seen or understood, and I wasn't expressing myself fully. I wasn't letting her know what was going on with me, and it was easier for me to just break the contact than to deepen the contact. And then when I came to my first radical honesty workshop, and I started learning the idea of actually expressing myself in the moment, actually sharing my emotions, the very emotions and thoughts that I would otherwise not share. I asked Tulia to talk with me, and I shared with her about being angry, expressed my anger to her about the restaurant selection, and had sort of the full body experience of noticing my body as I expressed my anger, being specific about what it was I was angry about, and then noticing my body shifting and relaxing, and me getting over the anger and getting to a place of forgiveness, letting that go, as opposed to having thought about it for a year. And then the same with my anger about the books that she gave me as gifts, expressing it, being specific about it, having the full body experience of it, noticing my experience in the moment, staying in contact with her, listening to her, and then noticing the shift in my body, the shift with my thoughts, and being able to get to a place of forgiveness with her about that. So yeah, I took practice.
Okay, so now I lost you. Okay, here you are again. Okay, all good. Yeah.
So yeah, it takes practice. It took me a year the first time to really express my anger to Tulia. And then I started getting quicker and quicker, noticing what was going on for me, and expressing it days later, hours later, noticing I was still thinking about it hours later. Oh, okay, there's a good clue. I'm still thinking about it. Going back to her and telling her. And then it got to a point where we were at a retreat, and there was a break in the retreat for the meal. And she came to me and said, "You want to talk to me about the lunch?" And I noticed, I said something, "No, not right now." And I walked to the other room, and she followed me to the room and said, "Well, what's going on?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm angry at you for talking to me about the meal. I don't want to talk about the meal right now." And she said, "Why didn't you tell me that in the other room?" I said, "Well, that was about 16 seconds ago. It used to take me a year or months or hours to express my anger. Now I got it down to 16 seconds. So yeah, it takes practice, and noticing our bodies, like in that case, is very key. So now when Julie and I are having a conversation, she could be talking. She might just say one word, and I notice I tighten up or I tense up or something, and I say, "Oh, I'm angry at you for saying that word." Letting it go and saying, "Okay, I'm ready to hear the rest of what you want to say." Which is much different than how I would have handled that in the past. I would have internalized that one word and thought, "How dare she say that? Oh my God, I can't believe she said that." And yet never share that with her, and creating distance between the two of us, creating some sort of barrier where I'm now alone with those thoughts. She's not aware that I'm angry about that. And then, of course, the anger coming out passive aggressively, me making little snide remarks or leaving the room or breaking eye contact, or so many ways that I try to express her anger that's not so effective. I was an expert at that. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, this is for me, I feel like my whole body kind of is responding to like your experiences. It is really, it feels very alive listening. It makes me feel alive listening to you, because I think that's really, the thing, it's a whole body experience. It's not just the mind that kind of keeps us imprisoned into our own thinking and judging and making interpretations and making lots of stuff up, literally, but to really, honor and to really immerse ourselves again into that connection we have with our body. And so this for me is really the takeaway. To the first step is I have to feel myself, so that I can get a kind of a somatic clue, like that kind of feeling inside of me. Okay, this is, something's going off, something. Okay, I feel anger. Many people I know, I used to be like this too. Everything is like a mental concept, and it's not so much experienced. So the bodily sensations are really numb, and I think maybe it seems kind of profane, but this is really the first big shift, listening to you, that comes with this whole, if I embrace this whole kind of attitude towards myself, towards life, towards how I connect, how I relate with other people. It's really about connecting with myself 100% in the first place, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And this probably leads us directly to the whole stuff that is stored in our nervous systems for years. That kind of, is there a moment when things keep, kind of surging to the surface, that have been stored for a long, long time? Once you start, as you say, complete those emotional circuits, those conversations, those connections, instead of breaking up, instead of going away, creating distance, is there coming up more and more until maybe you find this level of, okay, now I'm not, I don't know, I'm not triggering old experiences so much. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I think with this practice, we can learn more and more what our triggers are, and we can address them. That so many of our triggers, of course, are set from the past, come from the past experiences with past people, and then we carry those triggers into our present moment, and not so aware that what's going on in the present moment. Like with Tulia, in our first months or years, many things that how I got triggered with her had little to do with her and more with my ex-wife or previous relationships. And so then going back and having those conversations helped me to be less triggered in the moment with Tulia, and actually be more present with Tulia and see her as her, and not, a representation of my past experiences. And also with these, paying attention to what's happening to us somatically, what's happening in our bodies. It's not that we make this discomfort go away that we experience at times, but we have a theory that a reason why we don't speak up in the moment, in challenging or difficult moments, is that we don't want to experience that discomfort in our bodies, the heart racing, the sweatiness, tightness, tension, or whatever. We don't share openly about ourselves, then okay, we don't have to experience that. So it's not that we can make all this go away, but that we never experience it again. More that we can become more comfortable with it. Oh, my tightness, my belly, I don't want to say this, I don't want to share this, and I'm going to share it anyway. Having that experience over and over again, that we survived and even thrived after living through that experience. I mean, right now I'm experiencing sweatiness under my armpits. I imagine I'm a bit nervous. Imagine I want to do a good job here. I want your listeners to enjoy this conversation, and yeah, the sweatiness is there, and I'm surviving, and I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really this beauty of vulnerability, isn't it? Like to share also the imperfect or, you know, seemingly imperfect parts of ourselves that ultimately are the ones that create a human connection, right?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's amazing in our workshops what happens when people share themselves in this way and make themselves vulnerable. So the way I see it as with vulnerability is that it's so many of us walk around with a fortress. We're inside of our fortress. Scary to let other people in behind those fortress walls. It keeps us safe and safe for many good reasons.
Yeah.
And yet also we make ourselves quite lonely in that way and cut off from others, cut off from deeper connection or love. And then what happens in our workshops when we allow people to we open that gate or whatever. So I've talked about expressing anger, but it doesn't end there, because it's not about just being behind the fortress walls and lobbing the cannonballs from behind there. It's also about sharing everything else that's going on, the nervousness, the embarrassment, the sadness, things we generally don't want other people to know about us. And what happens when we allow others to see what's going on for us and we see what's going on for them. It's amazing and beautiful that we can really be seen in ways that we haven't been seen before. I think we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. We all want to be understood. And we struggle with this idea that people only want to see that the nice part of me, the best part of me, the successful part of me, the positive part of me. And when we share all those other parts of ourselves, that people tend not to actually run away from us. People kind of see us even more and like that. And then so often they respond in kind. They also show more of themselves. And it's a life that I was not living for decades. And now with this, I'm very, very much happier showing all sides of myself to others in the world. And not everybody likes all sides of me. That's also okay. I'd rather be with people who can accept all sides of me or many sides of me than doing this song and dance, trying to get people to like me by only showing the positive.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture that is kind of emerging inside of me, where we, instead of, you mentioned this state of living, walking through life like a fortress, with those walls around ourselves, like to really connect our, the different entities we are, the unique and edgy and different from each other, but yet there's a connection, and kind of this stream of connection can only flow if the walls break down, and we let it flow. So it's really, it's this desire for belonging and to connect that seems to become more possible, embarking on that journey that you describe. However, sometimes I'm still a bit ambivalent about it, because I totally like maybe talking more about groups, like in the setting I speak with one person, or like my significant other, it makes so much sense. When it comes to groups, sometimes I totally love the disruptive power of people who dare to, speak out the elephant in the room, or the taboo. And it's so, it releases so much energy. It's so kind of purifying. But sometimes I also feel like people who have embraced or adopted this, kind of, I want to be vulnerable. I want to be radically honest, that tend to a little bit of overshare what's going on. So that feels more like a cluttering of, the dynamic, and not so much, I don't know. Do you have an idea or an advice how to find that edge? I feel there's kind of an edge to navigate this, this stream of let it all flow among different people. And yeah, how do I know how much is really also valuable for the group, of sharing, of also speaking out uncomfortable truth, and when is it also okay to just, be okay with it as it is? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Yeah, this concept of radical honesty.
Hang on a moment. The connection was lost, but now it's okay
not
again.
so much about having a
Okay.
Isn't so much about expressing the stream of consciousness.
Okay.
This concept of radical honesty is not so much about expressing the stream of consciousness, like saying absolutely everything on our mind at all times. I think you'd go crazy. We'd go crazy doing that. Probably drive everyone crazy around us. But it is more about sharing the not withholding important information from others. And maybe that's different in different groups, in different settings. So for me, I like thinking that's with this practice, I allow myself to be myself in all groups, in all settings. Whereas before I was kind of selective. I was kind of this person around my son and this person around my romantic partner and this person around my family and this person when I was in other groups. And I sort of let go of that. I'm allowed myself to be myself in all groups. At least I like to think so. And it's also not about just blurting stuff out and dumping shit on other people and well, let them deal with it. Walking up to people saying, "Yeah, you're fat and you're stupid." I'm just being radically honest. That's not the idea at all.
I mean, those things happen too, unfortunately, right? So it's not.
They do, and that's I would consider that brutal honesty or whatever. It's because there's not. Where's the vulnerability in that? I'd rather if somebody says you're fat, then also share. Oh, and also I've struggled with my weight and my body image, and I worry that people perceive me as fat. I'd rather hear all that from someone as well. Again, making themselves vulnerable, sharing about themselves instead of only speaking with you language. We prefer to speak with I language, share about one's own experience. I think I've gotten off topic from your question.
Yeah, no, but that was exactly the point I was kind of seeking for, like not withholding important information. I think that's really, it's not about now that I found this courage, now that I'm fully connected with my body, now I gonna share all that's kind of coming up. But it's more about, finding the edge, like really sensing when do I withhold something that's important for this relationship, for the group, for whatever. And also, I think that's really a super guidance, like to navigate groups, particularly when, of course, there are spaces, and I guess that's a lot what your work in the retreats is about, like to really practice this radical sharing and like to really kind of share anything. But if I think about, our listeners who maybe, are leaders or entrepreneurs who run their own companies, work with teams, like what could be a pragmatic way to infuse a little bit more candor and honesty into those kind of settings. I mean, I think we all have been there. Sometimes it's a little bit, you feel boredom or tension or stress or, just transactional conversations. Do you have any inspiration for our listeners how to infuse a little bit more of this, this idea of yours?
Yeah. Well, of course, just by sharing ourselves, being a bit more open ourselves, that can be an invitation to others. yet in situations where people are leaders, there is that power imbalance that the leader can share about themselves, and maybe there's less risk. Whereas if they're an employee who's beneath them in some sort of organizational chart, maybe there is risk for them to share openly that may result in them being punished or fired or something if they're too open. Yet I imagine most leaders would prefer that the people that they are leading to be open and honest. Otherwise, they're probably just hearing from people what those people think they want to hear, which probably isn't going to benefit the organization or the group if they're not sharing everything. If they're not allowed to share everything. Tulia has a story that when she worked in the firm, that she did allow herself to speak up to her boss, saying the things that no one else in the room was saying in the meetings, pointing out flaws in the boss's plans or whatnot. And that it was quite scary for her, that she feared backlash or punishment for saying the things that he probably didn't want to hear, the boss didn't want to hear. And then yet later he did share with her that he wanted to hear her opinion, and that she was the one person in the room that he felt he could trust, because she was willing to share the negative as well as the positive, that it's hard to believe the positive if you're only hearing positive. Yet when you also hear the negative, it's easier to receive the positive for many of us.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
So creating an atmosphere in your group, your environment, where everything can be shared, the negative as well, the downsides, the doubts, the fears, the worries, all of that is welcome as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is really a huge, like such a powerful lever if, you know, each and every one of us have the kind of the responsibility. If we don't want other people to withhold, you know, important information from us, to you know, to go first and to share and to create that space of trust and safety, that it's okay to not only share like the shiny glossy side of things, but to be okay with everything and to create those spaces. So I would totally love to see that more often, and I think it would bring so much more, you know, feeling alive, feeling, you know, really also kind of a positive excitement, not so much like excitement, but like, you know, it's exciting to be here because something real is happening, right? Yeah.
Yes. Life is happening in that
life is happening. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I'm so, I totally love our conversation, Pete. And as we come slowly to an end of our dialogue, so I've got two more questions for you. So, and so I think they're like big ahas in our life, and they're also, and sometimes I believe they're even more important, like the tiny steps, like the, you know, the little things we maybe do every day or something like that. So what's the one life hack or practice that has made a big impact on your life? Some ritual, some tool, something you could recommend our listeners to, you know, as an inspiration, that maybe they also want to adapt it into their daily routines.
Well, I imagine many of your listeners are already employing mindfulness practices, meditation practices, and those applied to this work, in that it's another way to pay attention to what's happening in our body, paying attention to those clues when some emotion is arising, something's off for us, something's triggering for us, listening to our bodies. Then we can practice that with meditation, with mindfulness, and also noticing our thoughts as thoughts. That so many of us are so lost in thoughts that we believe our thoughts as reality, when actually so often our thoughts are beliefs or interpretations or imaginations, and not necessarily reality. So yeah, employing those things one's daily life, and paying more attention to what is happening in your body in any given moment. Be more aware of the here and now. What is happening right now?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And also it brings me back to the point you made about, hey, I'm just realizing I have been thinking about this like for 1 year. I mean, if we keep coming back to a topic that, aside from somatic cues, also gives us like okay, something's going on. So,
those recurring thoughts are huge clues, especially the recurring dreams. Even oftentimes we play out these unfinished scenarios in our dreams, and it's so powerful when we pay attention to that. Oh, I've been thinking about this again and again and again. I've been dreaming about this again and again and again. And what happens when we go and talk to that person, have a new experience, we're able to let go of those thoughts and again be more open to what's happening in the present, which then allows us able to build more to the future that we want, the life that we want, being less stuck in the past.
Absolutely. And this is exactly kind of directing us to the second question I got for you, which is about if you fast forward, like if you imagine the world in a few decades, into the future, and imagining that we kind of have made the shift to living a life that's more connected, with ourselves, with other people within the planetary boundaries. So from that space, if you take a look back, what's the first thing that comes to your mind that has helped us getting there?
I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. You're back.
Okay. What's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about that place in the future? Well, I'm so happy that so many of us, myself included, are being more emotionally alive, experiencing our emotions, expressing our emotions, sharing our emotions. So many of us, myself included, were raised in families where our parents didn't share their emotions, didn't talk about their sadness or their anger or their joy even, or even express love. And that's getting to be, difficult to imagine. Entire generation that didn't express love. With person with small children these days, it's hard to imagine not expressing one's love. And maybe I overcompensate, expressing my love to my son to overcompensate for the love I didn't hear expressed to me. Yet I like thinking that so many of us, as us in general as a society, are moving towards a place where emotions are welcomed. The expression of emotions are welcomed. All emotions, including anger, including appreciation, including joy. Many of us weren't taught how to express joy, but to be joyful meant even kind of being bad, because we should keep a lid on that as well, not make others feel bad if we're joyful. So yeah, I look forward to the world where there's more emotions shared, more emotions welcomed, more emotions being experienced by all of us.
Yeah. I really love that, like to this full embracing our human experience, our human emotions. That's really powerful. So thank you, Pete. Thank you so much. I believe this has been invaluable. I'm totally sure that everybody who will be tuning in really is going to love listening to your words. And maybe just give us a little sneak preview. What are kind of the next retreats, the next locations? Where can people find you that are coming up?
Yeah. Many of our next things are actually fully booked. We have a retreat outside of Berlin in mid-September. We have an 8-day intensive on Mallorca in October. There's only one spot left there. a weekend workshop in Amsterdam at the end of September. That's fully booked. We have a retreat in Limburg near the Dutch-German border at the beginning of December. Spaces there. We do regularly weekend workshops in Amsterdam and in Helsinki. We have a retreat center in Finland. So next summer we'll be there a lot. Find all of our retreats workshop schedule on our website, honestyeurope.com.
Amazing. So I will definitely add the link into the show notes so that everybody can reach out to you directly and to dive a bit deeper into the great work of radical honesty in Europe and in the world. So yeah, how do you feel now before we step out of this little space of ours?
I feel relaxed. I notice my shoulders going down. I notice my legs moving outwards. Still sweat on my body, and it's relaxing. And yeah, I've enjoyed the conversation with you very much. I appreciate you for the questions you've asked and your interest in this work, and for inviting me. I appreciate you for inviting me to talk about all this with you.
It's been a big pleasure. Thank you so much, Pete, and all the best for your upcoming retreats. And yeah, hope to stay in touch with you. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Bye. You too.
Bye.